Hey everyone! The United Kingdom has long been a dream destination for many around the world. Think historic cities, vibrant culture, and iconic landmarks like Big Ben. But right now, the UK is grappling with a serious issue. Inflation is climbing fast, and it's hitting people hard. In this video, we're diving deep into what's going on with inflation in the UK in 2025. What's the current state of inflation? Why are prices spiking? And how is this affecting everyday life? We'll cover all of this and more, so stick with us until the end to get the full picture. Let's kick things off by explaining what inflation actually is. What is inflation? If you've ever noticed prices creeping up, you've got a sense of what inflation is all about. Simply put, inflation is when the prices of goods and services increase over time. In other words, the money in your pocket buys less than it used to. For example, if £1,000 could get you a certain basket of groceries last year, inflation might mean you now need £1,500 for the same items. That's the basic idea. It's about your money losing its purchasing power. In the UK, inflation is measured using the Consumer Price Index, or CPI. This index tracks the cost of everyday essentials like food, fuel, utility bills, clothing, and more. When the prices of these items go up, the CPI rises, signaling higher inflation. The Bank of England, the UK's central bank, aims to keep inflation around a 2% target. Why? Because too much inflation can destabilize the economy, making life unaffordable, while too little can slow economic growth. Right now, though, that 2% target is looking like a distant memory. Let's see why. The state of inflation in the UK in 2025. According to the Office for National Statistics, as of June 2025, the UK's CPI inflation rate hit 3.6%. That means the prices of goods and services have risen by 3.6% compared to last year. Just a month earlier, in May 2025, inflation was at 3.4%. So it jumped by 0.2% in a single month. That might not sound like much, but it adds up fast when you're paying for groceries, rent, or energy bills. This 3.6% rate is a big deal because it's well above the Bank of England's 2% target. In fact, among G7 countries, think Canada, France, Germany, Italy, Japan, and the US, the UK has one of the highest inflation rates right now. For comparison, the US is at 2.3%, Germany at 2.1%, and Italy at 1.9%. The UK's 3.6% is a standout, and not in a good way. The Bank of England predicts inflation might climb even higher, possibly hitting 3.7% by the end of 2025, before hopefully easing back toward 2% by 2026. But for now, this high inflation is making life tougher for a lot of people. So, what's driving these price hikes? Let's break down the main culprits. Why is inflation so high in the UK? There are several reasons why inflation is spiking in the UK, and they're all interconnected. Let's go through them one by one. Skyrocketing energy prices. Energy costs are a massive driver of inflation right now. Since the Russia-Ukraine conflict in 2022, global energy prices have been volatile, and the UK has felt the impact. As an energy-importing nation, the UK is particularly vulnerable to these fluctuations, especially post-Brexit, which reduced access to European energy markets. In April 2025, Ofgem, the UK's energy regulator, raised the energy price cap by 6.4%. This pushed the average household energy bill from £1,738 to £1,849 per year. Water bills also surged by 26%, adding an extra £123 annually for the average household. Together, these increases contributed about 0.8% to the overall inflation rate. For families, this means higher electricity, gas, and water bills, eating into budgets that are already stretched thin. Businesses are also hit hard. passing on their higher costs to consumers through pricier goods and services. Rising food and beverage prices. Food and drink prices are another big factor. In June 2025, food and non-alcoholic beverage inflation rose by 0.4%. This is partly due to global supply chain issues and weather-related disruptions affecting agriculture. For instance, extreme weather in Europe and beyond has hurt crop yields, driving up prices for staples like wheat, vegetables, and dairy. The UK relies heavily on imported food. About 40% of its food supply comes from abroad. So any global price hikes hit the UK hard. For example, the cost of a weekly grocery shop has climbed noticeably. A loaf of bread that cost £1.20 last year might now be £1.50, and dairy products like milk and cheese have seen similar increases. Restaurants and cafes are also raising prices to cover their costs, making eating out more expensive. This all adds up, forcing families to rethink their budgets or cut back on non-essentials. Wage and labor cost. Increases wages are another piece of the puzzle. In April 2025, the UK's national living wage for workers over 21 rose from £11.44 to £12.21 per hour, a 6.7% increase. While this is great for workers, it raises costs for businesses, especially in sectors like retail, hospitality, and construction. On top of that, national insurance contributions for employers went from 13.8% to 15%. These higher labor costs often get passed on to consumers through higher prices for goods and services, fueling inflation further. Tax hikes, government policies, particularly tax increases, are also pushing prices up. In January 2025, the UK government introduced a 20% VAT on private school fees. This led many private schools to raise their tuition, adding to household expenses for families with children in these schools. Additionally, council tax rose by 5% across many areas, increasing the average household's annual bill. These tax hikes contribute to the overall rise in living costs, making it harder for people to keep up. Global trade policies. Looking beyond the UK, global trade policies are starting to play a role. For instance, trade tariffs proposed by US President Donald Trump in 2025 could raise the cost of imported goods in the UK. While the full impact is still uncertain, these tariffs could push prices higher for everything from electronics to clothing, adding to the inflationary pressure. How is inflation affecting people and affecting? So, how does all this hit everyday folks? Well, it's pretty straightforward. Higher inflation means life gets more expensive. Your energy and water bills are climbing, your grocery shopping costs more, and even grabbing a coffee or a meal out feels pricier. For the average person, this means tightening the belt, maybe cutting back on treats, skipping that extra takeaway, or rethinking big purchases. Savings are taking a hit too. If inflation is outpacing wage growth, your money's worth less over time. For example, if your salary goes up by 2%, but inflation is 3.6%, you're effectively losing purchasing power. This is especially tough for people on fixed incomes, like retirees, who don't have the flexibility to earn more. Pensioners are among the hardest hit, as their savings and pensions don't stretch as far when prices keep rising. Families are feeling the squeeze too. With school fees, council tax, and utility bills all going up, many are struggling to make ends meet. Some are even reconsidering major life decisions, like buying a home or starting a family, because the costs are just too high. What's the Bank of England doing? The Bank of England is trying to tame inflation, mainly by adjusting interest rates. As of 2025, they've lowered the base rate to 4%, down from higher levels in previous years. Lower interest rates are meant to make borrowing cheaper, encouraging spending and investment to stimulate the economy. However, with inflation still climbing, this hasn't been enough to bring prices under control yet. The bank predicts inflation might peak at 3.7% by the end of 2025, but hopes it'll drop back to the 2% target by 2026. That's the plan, at least, but it's more of a hope than a guarantee. For now, the high inflation environment is a challenge for everyone, from families to businesses. What's next for the UK? The UK remains an incredible place to live, with its rich history, diverse culture, and global influence. But this inflation crisis is making life tougher for many. Energy bills, food prices, wages, taxes, and global trade issues are all pushing prices higher, and people are feeling the pressure. Whether you're in London, Manchester, or a small village, these challenges are real. So, what do you think? Is the UK's inflation crisis something you're feeling in your daily life? Do you think the government and the Bank of England are doing enough? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. We'd love to hear from you.